Welcome to another edition of Planet Waves TV. My name is Eric Francis, your host for the next 15 minutes or so. And I am here this week with the first full edition of Planet Waves TV on the Uranus-Eris conjunction. This is a slow-moving thing that falls into the category of what most astrologers would call, were they thinking about it, generational astrology, by which I mean astrology that has a way of defining a major era in history and will also appear in the natal charts of millions and millions of humans born onto the planet during a very long era of history. Now, this is what I would call advanced astrology. There's not a lot of kind of puff in this, and to do this, I'm having to exceed the bounds of known astrology, that is to say, what you're likely to read in a book or on the internet. And the reason for that is because, first of all, not very much has been written about Eris, which was discovered in 2005 and which was named in 2006. That's pretty recently for a major planetary discovery. And one of the reasons that the discovery of Eris was so important is because it forced the astronomical community to define the word planet for the first time. Believe it or not, for all of the hundreds and hundreds of years of astronomers looking up toward the sky, by that point, well over 500 years of modern telescopic astrology at 1609. All right, we're looking at 400 years because Galileo is busy with his telescope, I believe, in the winter of 1609 and 1610, and he's finding things like the moons of Jupiter and the cycles of Venus. So just 400 short years in the history of astronomy, but then it's 400 years of science, and they hadn't defined what a planet is. And by the time they had discovered Eris, Mike Brown, Chad Trujillo, and Dave Rabinowitz had discovered Eris in 2005, there were well over 500,000 known bodies orbiting our sun. 500,000, not 8, not 9, 500,000. So they discover this thing, and it's different, and it's approximately the same size as Pluto, and they realize, well, we've really got to take up this issue of what a planet actually is. And so they do, and in the process of defining what a planet actually is, they undefine Pluto as a planet. They reclassify it as a dwarf planet. They define Eris as a dwarf planet, and then they undefine Ceres as an asteroid and kind of promote it to the first asteroid. They promote it to dwarf planet. So this concept of a dwarf planet comes, but the most important thing, the dwarf planet thing, I think is somewhat ridiculous. But the declassification of Pluto as a planet, right? That's why we all remember Eris. And so Eris comes along and says, well, there are all of these other planets. Deal with it. All right. And in true Eris style, revolutionary disruptor upends the known order of the solar system, and we get something completely new. All right. Uranus has a distinction for being the first planet discovered by science. This is in approximately 1781 or something, and it's in the late 18th century. It's right around the time of the United States Constitution. It's considered to be one of the planets that basically symbolizes the age of science and the age of science as we know it, but in particular the age of electricity. Remember George Washington flying his kite? That would be Ben Franklin flying his kite, and they're starting to get a concept that electricity can be handled, and electricity is probably the single most important technological development in the history of humanity, except for maybe the wheel and for the alphabet, because what it did was it turned night to day. It facilitated numerous kinds of communication that would be impossible. Basically, our entire lives have been transformed by the discovery of electricity, and the discovery of electricity and the ability to harness electricity is synchronous with the discovery of Uranus. So it's huge in the field of technology. Now, Eris has some similar bent with technology. Eris is First of all, a very, very distant planet. It's in something called the scattered disk. It's way, way further than Pluto, and it moves very slowly. It's taking more than a century to move through the sign Aries, where it is now. And the interesting thing about Eris that I just discovered in the past week is that when Eris changed signs into Aries in the 1920s, that was the advent of radio and television, commercially viable radio and television. They've been messing with radios for a while in the 19th century, but it's not until the early 20th century they figure out how to make radio into a thing we can all use. And there's lots of these microphones sold and people sitting here yakking into them like me. And this is in the 1920s. And the thing we know about media is that it transforms people. It completely changes who people are. I make a lot of references to this author I love to read. Here's my well-tattered copy of Understanding Media, The Extensions of Man by Grandpa Marshall McLuhan, the spiritual grandfather of planet waves. And when you read this, and this is, you may not be able to read it, but I think if you sit patiently with a pencil and a dictionary, you'll be just fine. It may take you 6 months, but it's worth reading if you want to understand what all this stuff is doing to you. We're going to get a sense of it right now because this is all going somewhere. Well, we find out from Understanding Media, from McLuhan studies both during, before, and after that book published more than 50 years ago, is that media transform us. And when, for example, electricity dawned in the late 18th century and became a thing in the 19th century, we were transformed. Quite literally, night was turned to day. And the most important distinction in the environment that humans had to deal with, the difference between night and day, was completely erased most places. Now, there's a similar technological advance associated with Eris. It's not the discovery of Eris, but it's the movement of Eris into Aries. And that happens around the mid-1920s, around 1925, I believe. And as that happens, the first radio and TV stations are becoming commercially viable. So we begin the impact of radio and television, which is the use of electrical communication technology as a thing in our daily lives. And radio is viable first, but the first TV broadcast happens right in the mid-1920s, around 1928, right around the same time that radio is becoming commercially viable. So they're actually running in parallel. Obviously, radio is a simpler technology. They don't have to transmit a visual image in scan lines or pixels. It's much easier for them to perfect that technology and have it be not that different than it is today. But it's running in parallel with television, and both of these things are completely transforming what it means to be a person, radically, completely transforming. One of the most important things that radio and television did was that it extended the senses and, in a sense, gave us this ability to be disembodied. One of the reasons that people prefer to watch me on YouTube is that I don't seem so disembodied. You're staring at my face right now, and you can see me speaking. It is dependent upon visual space rather than acoustic space. Acoustic space is even more disembodied, even though your eye has been ripped out of your head and put on my desk, and your ear has been ripped off of your skull and placed on my desk as a microphone, and you are basically the one who is having an out-of-body experience watching this, because you have basically left your body and entered the internet, which is what I'm here to talk to you about. So we have two major sweeping waves of change associated with Uranus and Eris as technological devices. And when they make their first conjunction, that's the point of the 1920s, in 27, 28, they make their first conjunction in Aries. That is the conjunction that coincides with the commencement of and the proliferation of broadcast media. Hold that thought. Now, approximately 90 years later, Uranus is back. Eris is still in Aries. And we are now having another conjunction of Uranus and Eris in Aries. And the effect of all of this disembodiment was to create basically total chaos on the concept of what a person is. It removed the individual consciousness that was cultivated by the book. The book goes a long way, perhaps the whole way, toward helping people define what they are as individual entities. It takes away the dominance of group consciousness, which had been the primary form of consciousness up until the time of the book. And the book comes in sometime around the maybe 14th century. And it defines us as people up until the early 20th century, when broadcast media takes over and completely turns that topsy-turvy, and we end up having no idea at all who we are. And now we have reached the age of the internet, the digital age. And we've reached the digital age, and now basically everything we experience is an out-of-body experience. Hold that thought. Let's take a look at the chart. Now, here is the conjunction of Uranus and Eris. Uranus, 84-year orbit. Eris, approximately 570-year orbit. Very long, slow orbit. Here are some other planets that are going to factor into this conversation. There's Mars retrograde, there's Saturn retrograde in Sag, there's Pluto in Capricorn, and there's lots of stuff going on in Pisces. Now, over the years since the discovery of Eris, I have been describing, delineating Eris in various ways, and the one that's come up over and over again is a sense of identity chaos. And this really took hold when Uranus entered Aries in approximately, what year did that happen? 2009 or 8 or what was 2016? Approximately 2010. It was approximately 7 years ago that Uranus entered Aries, maybe 2011 that it did. It was coincidental with the Fukushima thing in 2011. So that's when it entered Aries. And that coincides with the advent of the so-called smartphone. I don't have one. Oh, here it is. Here's my little thing. This harmless, cute, purple little thing. Hello, Mr. iPhone. Look, it's 1333. Okay. This starts to proliferate when Uranus enters Aries. And if radio changed everything, if TV changed everything, if the microphone changed everything, if the phonetic alphabet and writing changed everything, the ordinary telephone, the typewriter, over and over and over again changed everything. Now suddenly the internet goes from being this thing that you experience maybe at home, you go to it, you type into it, you look something up, to this thing that you carry around with you all the time, that you are dealing with every single time you make a purchase. You walk into the nail salon to get your manicure done, and they're watching Netflix by internet all day long. And then when you leave, you're still checking your mail, swiping, getting dates, checking your mail, posting, updating social media, taking selfies. Let's take a selfie here while we're on YouTube. We'll document the experience of talking about the media in the media with a selfie to commemorate it. And the upshot is that you are leaving your body when you come onto the internet, and because the internet's now everywhere, your life has become one endless, long, out-of-body experience. That is the impact of Uranus and Eris on Aries, and at the time of the conjunction now, the out-of-body experience phenomenon of the internet is basically complete. And if you're wondering why people are so confused, if you're wondering why you struggle to figure out who you are, if you're wondering why you struggle to have purpose, if you're wondering why there's just so much confusion and chaos, think of it not being about the content of the media that you're experiencing, or what the depiction of sex in a video tells you about sex. Rather, think about it as you projecting your entire consciousness onto the internet and carrying it around with you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This includes the broadcasting of microwave signals into your house all the time. It includes your Wi-Fi network. It includes your phone constantly sending out ping messages, looking for its tower, looking for its thing, and you're surrounded by, bathed and soaked in the internet, and the net effect is you are living on the astral plane by living in the midst of a society that is completely swamped by the internet. I remember when the internet first was a new thing. It felt like entering something. On the night that I first posted the first Planet Waves webpage in December of 1998, it was very exciting. We were pioneering new territory, and you would go in and enter that territory as if you were walking through a door into a barn, and you were inside that barn. It had its own defined space, it had its own feeling, and birds were flying around, and there's an old dirt floor, and you're in this thing. Now we don't have that feeling anymore. We are always in the internet, and you can't bring your body into the internet. You cannot bring your physical body into the internet. You can only project your mental body, your astral body into the internet, and that's what's going on. And in my opinion, that is the main description of whatever this crazy chaos of Uranus conjunct Eris is. Now, I haven't gone into all the details of Uranus conjunct Eris. I can do that subsequently. I can talk about it on Planet Waves FM. But these are both revolutionary planets, and as I explained at the beginning of this video, that they are both associated with mass revolutions in technology, including the electrical revolution with Uranus and the broadcast revolution with Eris. And all of these technologies change the way we experience ourselves and we experience existence. And there's been no revolution so total in the history of media and so fast. I mean, think about how many hundreds of years it took from the time the Gutenberg Bible was printed, the first beautiful Gutenberg Bible printed in Germany by Mr. Gutenberg, to the time that everyone had a copy of the Bible or any other book. It was centuries. But between the advent of digital technology, which seems to, the transistor is patented like in 1948. Okay, so nobody knows what's going on. Nobody's thinking about the transistor in 1948 except a couple of electrical engineering professors. They know what's going on. Even the editors of National Geographic totally missed the transistor as being one of the things that would most influence post-war world. They listed matches, choo-choo trains, airplanes flying around, the motor car. On the 10 most matches, they listed remember that? When I got a copy of the first National Geographic published after World War II, it was September 1945, and it was the 10 most important things that will shape our lives. It includes choo-choo trains and matches. Okay? Does not include the transistor. It is the transistor that made this massive microprocessing possible, that makes it possible for me to sit here in my house and record a video consuming millions upon millions upon millions of bits of data. This has completely changed us, and it has changed us in ways we can't see. And so what I'm suggesting you do is notice the ways in which you are basically walking around on the astral plane all day long, and the ways in which the internet has done something which all media do, which is render something obsolete. And the thing that digital technology has rendered obsolete is your body. Now, can that be? You don't really have very much existence on this plane of reality without your body. You need your body. But when you think about the way that we take care of our bodies, or rather that we don't take care of our bodies, the way the things that we call food, and the way that we think, oh, well, all right, if I mess my knee up, I'll just get a new knee. If I screw my hip up, I'll just get a new hip. Oh, if I rip the shit out of my shoulder, I'll just get rotator cuff surgery. Big deal. We are treating our bodies like they are obsolete. We are taking poison medicines as if our bodies are obsolete, the things that don't actually matter. We live as if we live without bodies on the astral plane, except for the people who are completely and totally obsessed with their bodies. And in their case, most of what they're learning about their bodies, they're learning on the astral plane and turning their bodies into a fantasy projection tool. That is to say, you stroll down the street, you look very good, you become a fantasy projection device, then you get mad that people notice you. Okay, good luck with that. Okay, so that's what I've got to say mainly about this. Now let me just add a couple of more things here, since we're not quite at the 1 hour mark yet. Here's our Uranus-Eris conjunction in Aries. Here is Ceres in Aries. Ceres in Aries is saying, feed yourself. That the first way that you're going to connect with your body, now that you're going to reclaim it back from the astral plane, is with food. Food first. Eat real food. Drink real water. Diet Coke is not water. And cold cuts are not food. Okay. So Ceres is in the mix, and we'll make an exact conjunction with Uranus and Eris in Aries, and that's going to be very soon. Then in other outer planet activity, we have Chiron and Chiron and Neptune in Pisces. In particular, Neptune in Pisces is saying, okay, this life is but a dream, but your life is not really exactly a fantasy unless you choose to live it as such, but we are being flooded, overwhelmed with imagination and delusion by Neptune in Pisces. It is Neptune in Pisces is all about the imagination run completely unchecked. Now, for a while, Chiron in Pisces was keeping it in check, and if you did your early work when Chiron was in Pisces, and you made it a point to master something about the focusing of consciousness, then you're going to feel a lot less overwhelmed by Neptune in Pisces. But Neptune in Pisces will overwhelm you with a kind of a astral quality. It is Neptune in Pisces is the very image of dreaming and of astral travel, traveling on the astral plane. Okay, so that's going on. Furthermore, solid physical reality is being whittled away by Pluto in Capricorn. We know that Pluto, Shiva the destroyer, Pluto the thing that just basically is the unstoppable force, is ripping through Capricorn, and traditions are being devastated. Land is washing away. Thousands and thousands of square miles of land are falling into the ocean on a regular basis. Our country is smaller than it was because Louisiana has disappeared. Much of Louisiana has disappeared into the Gulf of Mexico. This is happening many places. So there is an underlying crumbling of integrity, a crumbling of tradition, a crumbling of ideas. This is indicated by Pluto in Capricorn. We need to get a grip on this. We need to get a grip on this because we need to make new things in the absence of the old ones. And there's something about making sure that we have made contact with and are working consciously with our most important traditions in the presence of this influence that basically completely undermines the structure of everything, in particular the structure of time. Time matters. You only have so much of it. If you're really good, you get to live in parallel time dimensions, but if you are that good, write to me. I'd like to learn how you do it. All right, next. Mars in Scorpio. As I've said for the last several hundred editions of Planet Waves FM, this is about remembering sex. Sex is one of your very most important contact points with your body and with the nexus of your body and your feelings, and furthermore, with the connection of your body, your feelings, and the body and the feelings of your fellow humans, your brothers and your sisters. Ladies and gentlemen, make love, not war. I'll catch you next week. Bye for now.